Hey guys, tonight we journey back to a time of stark contrasts, a world caught between medieval superstition and the dawn of modern science. We're heading to the cold, windswept shores of 16th century Denmark to meet a man of noble birth, explosive temper, and cosmic ambition. You'll stand inside his personal island kingdom, a palace of science built to decode the heavens, complete with a printing press, a paper mill, and, because why not, a court jester. We're talking about a man who lost his nose in a duel over a math problem and wore a metal replacement for the rest of his life. Frankly, given the state of medicine, hygiene, and the general enthusiasm for settling arguments with swords, you probably wouldn't survive your first week in his world. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And for a bit of fun, post your city and what time it is for you in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is thick with the smell of sea salt and damp wool. It's December 14th, 1546, and somewhere in the imposing stone walls of Knutstorp Castle, in a region called Scania, then part of Denmark, now Sweden, you are born. You are not just any child. You are Tycho Brahe, a name that will one day be Latinized to the more familiar Tycho. Your arrival is a significant event, for you are the heir to two of the most powerful and ancient noble families in the kingdom, the Brahes and the Bills. Your father, Brahe, is a privy councillor to the king. Your mother, Beate Bile, hails from an equally influential clan of statesmen and church leaders. You are, for all intents and purposes, 16th century Danish royalty, born with a silver spoon so large it's probably more of a ladle. Your childhood, however, is not destined to be a straightforward tale of privilege. You have an uncle, your father's brother, Jürgen Brahe. He's a vice admiral, a respected landowner, and a man of considerable wealth. But he and his wife, Inger Oxe, are childless. A private arrangement is made. Your parents, Ott and Beate, promise you their firstborn son to Jürgen to raise as his own. But when you are born, they have a change of heart. They keep you. Life goes on. A year or so later, your parents have another son, Stein. And for your uncle Jürgen, this seems to be a signal. The deal is back on, whether your parents agree or not. So one day, when you are just 2 years old, you are bundled up and spirited away from Knutstorp Castle. There's no dramatic chase, no ransom note. You are simply taken by your uncle to his own estate at Tosterup. It's a move that sounds like a shocking kidnapping to our modern ears, and in a way, it was. But in the complex web of Renaissance family politics and honor, it was complicated. Historians still argue whether this was a truly hostile act or the forceful claiming of a promise, a sort of dynastic repo operation. Whatever the case, your parents don't put up much of a fight. They have other sons to carry on the family name. And so, your life is cleaved in two. You now have two sets of parents, but you will be raised by your aunt, an uncle who, by all accounts, adore you and pour all their frustrated parental ambitions into your future. You grow up not in the courtly hustle of your birth father's home, but in the learned, wealthy, and slightly more stable world of Tosterup Castle. Your uncle Jürgen is determined to make you a statesman, a lawyer, a man who will serve the king with his mind and his words. So, at the tender age of 12 in age, when you might now be worrying about middle school, you are packed off to the University of Copenhagen. You are meant to study rhetoric and philosophy, the classical foundations for a career in law. You do as you're told. You are a good, dutiful, noble son. You pore over Latin texts. You learn the art of argument, but you can feel a quiet disconnect. The human world, with its shifting loyalties, its petty squabbles, its laws written and rewritten by fallible men, feels messy. It lacks a certain elegance. Then, on August 21st, 1560, something happens that changes the entire trajectory of your life. You are 13, almost 14. Word has been spreading through the university, a buzz of anticipation based on old astronomical tables. There is going to be a solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse. You, like many others, are probably a little skeptical. The idea that someone, long ago, could scribble down some numbers and predict that the sun would vanish from the sky on a specific day feels like a kind of magic trick. But you go outside with the others. You wait. And then, right on schedule, you watch as the moon's shadow begins to creep across the face of the sun. The sky darkens. The birds grow quiet. A strange silvery twilight descends. And in that moment of profound cosmic order, something clicks into place within you. It's a divine revelation. Not in a religious sense, but in a mathematical one. Here is proof of a universe governed by unbreakable, predictable laws. While your professors drone on about human laws that can be bent and broken, the heavens operate with a perfection that feels pure and absolute. You see it as a miracle, not because it's supernatural, but because it's natural and yet so perfectly knowable. The bug has bitten. The stars have claimed you. From this day forward, your official path may be law, but your secret, burning passion is for the sky. You start spending your allowance not on the usual student frivolities, perhaps the 16th century equivalent of pizza and cheap beer, but on astronomical charts and books. You begin your own quiet rebellion, a secret life of celestial observation, a journey that will soon set you against your family, your peers, and the very heavens you've come to adore. Your formal education continues, a grand tour of the great German universities. Your Uncle Jürgen, ever the pragmatist, sends you to Leipzig with a tutor, hoping the change of scenery will finally cement your legal training. It doesn't. You play the part of the law student by day, but by night, you are a secret astronomer. You buy more sophisticated instruments, like a cross staff and a small celestial globe. Your birth father, Ott, has died, and your mother, Beate, offers you a wing of Harravad Abbey, a former monastery that is now part of the family estate. Here, you set up a laboratory. But it's not just for astronomy. Like many great thinkers of the age, including Isaac Newton later on, you are deeply fascinated by alchemy. This wasn't the fringe pseudoscience it is today. To you, alchemy and astronomy are two sides of the same coin, the search for the underlying hidden principles of the cosmos. One looks up at the macrocosm, the other down at the microcosm. So you spend your days trying to transmute base metals and distill herbal medicines, and your nights gazing at the eternal stars. It's a comfortable, scholarly life for a wealthy nobleman. You spend your nights on freezing balconies, meticulously charting the positions of the planets, especially the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. You notice something unsettling. The old, trusted Alphonsine and Prutenic tables, the standard astronomical guides of the day, are wrong. Not by a little, but by days, even a month. The perfect, predictable heavens are, it seems, a bit shoddy in their timekeeping. This discrepancy doesn't shake your faith in a clockwork universe. It fuels your conviction that only through relentless night-after-night observation can its true workings be understood. A bit of family drama interrupts your studies. A war breaks out between Denmark and Sweden, and your uncle, the vice admiral, is called to serve. In a moment of high drama, King Frederick II is crossing a bridge in Copenhagen when his horse rears, throwing him into the icy canal. You begin designing and commissioning your own, much larger instruments, frustrated by the limitations of what you can buy. You commission a magnificent quadrant in Augsburg, a massive wooden instrument so large and precise it becomes a local wonder. You are no longer just a hobbyist. You are becoming an instrument maker, a data scientist, and a pioneering observer, all wrapped in one. Your Uncle Jürgen, without a second thought, leaps into the freezing water to save his king. He succeeds, But the heroic act comes at a cost. He catches pneumonia and dies a few weeks later. This is a pivotal moment for you. While you mourn the man who raised you, his death also cuts the last formal tie binding you to a legal career. You inherit his fortune, making you independently wealthy, and you are finally free to pursue your true calling without disappointing him. The king owes your family a debt of gratitude, a fact that will become very important later on. You continue your studies in Wittenberg, Rostock, and Augsburg, but your focus is now almost entirely on astronomy. Eventually, you return to Denmark. Then comes the night of November 11th, 1572. You are 25 years old. The day has been ordinary, perhaps spent over a bubbling retort in your alchemical lab, the air acrid with sulfur. As evening falls, you walk home for dinner. You look up at the sky, a familiar, comforting habit. You know the constellations like the back of your hand. And there, in the familiar W of Cassiopeia, you see it. But your friends and colleagues urge you, insisting that a discovery this monumental must be shared. So, in 1573, you publish a small book titled De Stella Nova, on the new star. The book is a sensation. It is a masterclass in scientific reasoning, laying out your observations, your measurements, and your shattering conclusion. The book makes you an overnight celebrity in the intellectual circles of Europe. You, Tycho Brahe, the young Danish nobleman, are the man who has proven Aristotle wrong. You have lit a fire in the celestial sphere, and its light has illuminated your name across the continent, catching the eye of the very king your uncle once saved from a watery grave. Your quiet life is over. An impossibly bright star, a brilliant point of light where no star should be. It's as bright as Venus, a trespasser in the celestial city. Your first reaction is pure disbelief. You think your eyes are playing tricks on you. Maybe it's a comet? No, it has no tail, and it doesn't move against the background stars. Maybe it's some atmospheric phenomenon. You stop some peasants on the road. You point up. Do you see that? You ask, probably sounding a little unhinged. They see it too. It's real. You rush back to your instruments and begin to measure. Night after night, you meticulously record its position, its brightness. It doesn't move. It's not a planet, not a comet. It is a new star, a stella nova. This is a universe-shattering discovery. For over 1,400 years, Western thought has been dominated by the Aristotelian view of the cosmos. The earth is corrupt and changing, but the heavens, the realm of the stars and planets from the moon outwards, are perfect, eternal, and unchanging. Nothing new can ever appear there. Nothing old can ever fade away. Your new star is a direct, blatant contradiction to this ancient foundational truth. It's like looking at a granite mountain one day and seeing a giant, sparkling diamond embedded in it the next. It simply shouldn't be possible. While other astronomers across Europe also see the star, you are the one who understands its profound implications and has the skill to prove it. You use parallax measurements to demonstrate conclusively that the star is far beyond the moon, deep in the realm of the supposedly fixed stars. You hesitate to publish. It was considered ungentlemanly for a nobleman to write and sell books like a common scholar. It was a bit tacky. Your newfound fame as Europe's premier astronomer doesn't exempt you from the hot-blooded realities of noble life. You are a man of immense intellect, yes, but you are also a Brahe proud, stubborn, and not one to suffer fools, or even those who just happen to disagree with you. It's 1566, a few years before the supernova would make you a household name, and you're a 20-year-old student at the University of Rostock in Germany. The intellectual air is buzzing with debates, but so is the social scene. You're attending the wedding feast of a professor, a grand affair filled with wine, scholarly gossip, and the kind of boisterous energy that often accompanies gatherings of clever young men. You fall into a conversation with another Danish nobleman, a third cousin of yours named Mandra Parsberg. The conversation turns, as it often does between bright young minds, to mathematics. But this isn't a friendly exchange of ideas. An argument erupts. Historians still argue whether they were debating a specific mathematical formula, or, more broadly, who was the superior mathematician. Given your already burgeoning ego and Mandarup's own noble pride, it likely escalated quickly from a technical point to a matter of personal honor. Voices are raised. Insults are exchanged. In the world of 16th century aristocrats, there's a well-established method for settling such disputes when words fail. A duel is proposed and accepted. Later that evening, in the pitch-dark cemetery of the university, you and Mandarup Parsberg meet, swords drawn. It's a ridiculous scene, if you think about it. Two brilliant young men, fueled by wine, and intellectual pride, trying to kill each other in the dark over who's better at trigonometry. The duel is brief and furious. The exact details are lost to the fog of time, but the outcome is dramatically clear. In the clash of steel, Mandarup's sword slices across your face, shearing off the bridge and a significant portion of your nose. The fight stops immediately, the point of honor presumably settled by this rather permanent disfigurement. You are left bleeding, humiliated, and in need of a new nose. This isn't just a cosmetic issue. It's a constant, visible reminder of your temper and your pride. For the rest of your life, you will carry the mark of that foolish argument. But you are Tycho Brahe, a man who solves problems, whether they are celestial or facial. You turn to your knowledge of alchemy and metallurgy. You begin to design and craft prosthetic noses. This becomes one of your most enduring and legendary quirks. You don't just have one fake nose. You have a collection, like a modern person might have different pairs of glasses. For everyday wear, you have a nose fashioned from a clever alloy of brass and copper, polished to look like natural skin, at least from a distance. For grand occasions, you reportedly have a much more ostentatious one made of silver and gold. This prosthetic is a marvel of 16th century craftsmanship. It's held in place with a special paste or glue, a concoction you likely developed yourself in your alchemical lab. You are said to have carried a small box with you at all times, containing this adhesive so you could reapply your nose should it become loose. Imagine the social awkwardness. You're in the middle of a heated debate about planetary orbits, and you have to pause to glue your nose back on. It's a humbling, humanizing detail for a man who often seemed larger than life. This golden nose, as it came to be known, becomes an inseparable part of your identity. It's a symbol of your eccentricity, your wealth, and your scientific ingenuity applied to a deeply personal problem. A quirky tidbit from the era suggests that some alchemists believed that gold and silver, being noble metals, had healing properties and could even promote the regeneration of flesh, a belief you may have shared. The duel and its nasal consequences do little to mellow you. If anything, they cement your reputation as a formidable and eccentric character. You lean into it. The man with the metal nose is not someone to be trifled with. It becomes part of your personal brand. Years later, when you are the master of your own scientific island, your imposing figure, the nobleman with the glittering prosthetic, will add to your mystique and authority. It's a constant reminder that you are a man who bends the world to his will. Whether it's charting a new star, building a revolutionary observatory, or simply refusing to go through life without a nose. It is the ultimate testament to your character. When faced with a problem, you don't just accept it. You engineer a bold, elaborate, and slightly ostentatious solution. And as you step back into the world, your face forever altered, you carry with you a new kind of confidence, the confidence of a man who has stared down a sword rebuilt, a part of himself with precious metal, and is now ready to take on the heavens themselves. Your publication of De Stella Nova has made you the talk of Europe. You are a scientific sensation, and you know it. After a few more years of travel and lecturing, you begin to feel the pull of other lands. He knows that a man of your ambition cannot be tied down with a simple pension or a stuffy court position. You need something grand, something unprecedented. You need a canvas worthy of your cosmic vision. So Frederick makes you an offer so extravagant, so impossibly generous, that it stops you in your tracks. He offers you an entire island. The scientific climate in Denmark, despite your newfound fame, feels a bit provincial. You are a big fish in a small pond, and you have ambitions that require a much larger ocean. You seriously consider offers to relocate, perhaps to the learned courts of Germany or the vibrant intellectual centers of Italy. You make plans to settle permanently in Basel, Switzerland, a city with a great university and a thriving printing industry. News of your impending departure reaches the ears of the Danish king, Frederick II. This is the same king your uncle Jürgen saved from the canal all those years ago. Frederick is a classic Renaissance monarch, a great patron of the arts and sciences, a builder of magnificent castles like Kronborg, and a man intensely proud of his kingdom. The thought of losing his nation's brightest star, the most famous astronomer in the world, to a rival territory is galling. It's a matter of national prestige. He cannot let you go. The king summons you to court. The island is called Ven, a small pearl of land floating in the Risund, the strait of water separating Denmark from what is now Sweden. It's strategically located, visible from both the Danish capital of Copenhagen and the king's own magnificent Kronborg castle at Elsinore, the very setting of Shakespeare's Hamlet. The island is about 3 square miles, home to a few dozen farming families, and not much else. But to the king, it's the perfect gift. It's isolated enough for the kind of focused, deep work you need to do, yet close enough to the seat of power to remain a jewel in his crown. The royal charter, issued in May 1576, is astonishingly generous. The king grants you Ven, for the duration of your lifetime, to be your personal fiefdom. You will be the absolute lord of the island. He also provides a massive sum of money for construction and pledges an annual stipend that amounts to roughly 1% of the entire Danish state budget. To put that in perspective, it is like a modern government giving a single scientist a blank check backed by a significant portion of the national treasury. It is arguably the first ever large-scale government funding of a scientific research project. The only condition is that you must pursue your astronomical research for the glory of Denmark, and provide astrological advice and horoscopes for the royal family when requested, a perfectly normal part of the job description for a 16th century astronomer. You accept. How could you not? Your plans to move to Basel are immediately forgotten. This is better than any university position. This is the chance to build a scientific institution from the ground up, designed to your exact specifications, funded by a king who sees your work as a national treasure. You are no longer just an astronomer. You are about to become a project manager, an architect, a feudal lord, and the director of the world's most advanced scientific research center. You arrive on the island of Fen with grand designs forming in your mind. The local tenants, about 40 families, are now officially your subjects. You have the right to their labor and a portion of their crops. This arrangement, common in feudal Europe, will become a source of friction later, but for now, it's simply the way things are done. You survey the island, pacing its grassy bluffs, feeling the sea wind on your face. You stand on the highest point of the flat plateau that makes up the island's center. This is the spot. Here, you will build not just an observatory, but a veritable palace of science. It will be a beacon of learning, a testament to your genius and your king's patronage. You decide to name your new home Uraniborg, the castle of Urania. Urania was the Greek muse of astronomy, and the name perfectly captures the dual nature of the project. It will be a fortress of knowledge, a castle dedicated to the stars. The design will be a fusion of a Renaissance palace and a state-of-the-art scientific facility, a place where art, architecture, and astronomy converge. You are not just building a lab. You are building a new world, your own personal island kingdom, dedicated to unraveling the secrets of the cosmos. The king has given you the land and the money. Now, it's up to you to turn this quiet, windswept island into the scientific capital of the world. The dream is about to become stone, brick, and timber. With the royal charter in your pocket and the island of Hyen under your command, the real work begins. The vision in your head is for something far beyond a simple observatory with a telescope dome. You envision a complete, self-sustaining scientific ecosystem, a place where every aspect of your work, from observation to publication, can be controlled and perfected. You are the architect, the engineer, and the artistic director of this grand project. The first foundation stone of Uraniborg is laid in August 1576, with all the pomp and ceremony befitting a royal endeavor. You choose the highest point of the island, a central plateau that gives you a clear, unobstructed view of the horizon in every direction. The design you create is a marvel of Renaissance symmetry and symbolism, deeply influenced by your interests in geometry and alchemy. Uraniborg is a perfect square, each side about 50 feet long, aligned precisely with the cardinal directions. At the north and south ends of the main building, two great towers rise up, topped with elegant spires and onion-domed cupolas. These aren't just decorative. They are the primary observation platforms, their roofs designed to be rolled back or removed to give your instruments access to the sky. The castle itself is constructed from red brick, with elegant sandstone detailing for the window frames and cornerstones. It is, from the outside, a magnificent Renaissance palace. It looks less like a laboratory and more like the country home of a wealthy duke. And that's exactly the point. It's a statement of prestige, for you and for your king. Around the main castle, you've designed elaborate gardens. But these are no ordinary flower beds. They are laid out in intricate geometric patterns, a terrestrial reflection of the celestial order you seek to understand. You plant over 300 different types of trees, and in a quirky display of your alchemical interests, you design a vast herb garden. You cultivate medicinal plants, not just for treating the island's inhabitants, but for your alchemical experiments, believing the properties of the plants are linked to the planets. The interior of Uraniborg is just as meticulously planned. The main floor is for living and entertaining. There's a great dining hall, studies, and rooms for your family. By this time, you have entered into a common-law marriage with a local woman named Kirstine Jurgensdatter, a controversial move as she was not a noble, and your children could not inherit your titles. The real magic, however, is in the other parts of the building. The basement is a sprawling alchemical laboratory, filled with furnaces, retorts, and alembics. Here, you and your assistants will spend countless hours on your chemical and pharmaceutical research, a pursuit you consider just as important as your astronomy. You also build a dungeon, a peculiar feature for a scientific institute. Historians still argue whether it was for disciplining unruly tenants and staff, or simply a standard architectural feature for a man who was, after all, the feudal lord of the island. The upper floors and the towers are the heart of the astronomical enterprise. Here you have your library, which will grow to be one of the finest scientific libraries in the world. And on the main observation balconies, you install your magnificent instruments. The walls are adorned with murals of famous astronomers, and with your own taconic system of the universe. There's even a system of intercom speaking tubes running through the walls, so you can call out observations to an assistant in another room without leaving your instrument. In one room, a giant brass celestial globe, 5 feet in diameter, is under construction. On its surface, you will meticulously engrave the position of every star you observe, creating a permanent metallic record of the heavens to make Uraniborg a truly self-sufficient enterprise. You expand your construction beyond the castle walls. You need paper for your logbooks and for printing your findings, so you build a paper mill on the island, powered by a local pond. You don't want to rely on outside printers who might introduce errors into your precious data, so you build your own printing press. This gives you complete quality control over your publications, from the casting of the type to the binding of the final book. Everything produced on Ven is a product of Hen. The entire project is a testament to your holistic vision. Uraniborg is a machine for producing knowledge. Raw celestial data comes in through the observation decks. It's processed and analyzed in the studies. It's contextualized with knowledge from the library, and the final product, the books and star charts, are manufactured and printed on site. It is a fusion of castle, cathedral, laboratory, and factory. For nearly 2 decades, this small island will be the most important scientific address on the planet. From all over Europe, aspiring astronomers and learned men will make the pilgrimage to Ven to see the castle of the heavens and to learn from the man with the golden nose who commanded this extraordinary scientific kingdom. It is the physical manifestation of your ego and your genius, a perfect world you built yourself, from which you intended to map the perfect world of the cosmos. Your vision for Uraniborg is magnificent, but the castle is just the vessel. The true heart of your scientific revolution lies in the tools you build to fill it. You know that the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe isn't just about having a revolutionary theory. It's about having revolutionary data. The errors in the old astronomical tables that so frustrated you as a student were not, you believed, the fault of the cosmos. They were the fault of crude, imprecise instruments. To map the heavens with the accuracy you demand, you need to create a new generation of astronomical tools, bigger, more stable, and more precise than anything the world has ever seen. This is where your skills as a master craftsman, metallurgist, and engineer come to the forefront. You are not an astronomer who simply buys his tools. You are an astronomer who conceives, designs, and oversees the construction of every single piece of equipment. You turn a part of Uraniborg into a vast workshop, employing the finest instrument. Makers, woodworkers, and metal casters from across Germany and Denmark. Your guiding principle is scale. You realize that the larger the instrument, the finer the scale you can engrave upon it, and therefore, the more precise the measurement you can make. Your instruments are not the small, portable brass contraptions of earlier astronomers. They are monumental works of art and engineering, integrated into the very architecture of the castle. One of the first and most famous is the Great Mural. Quadrant is not a standalone device you can move around. It's built directly onto the inner surface of a massive north-south aligned wall in one of your main studies. The quadrant itself is a giant arc of brass with a radius of nearly 7 feet, securely fixed to the plastered wall. You and your team spend weeks meticulously engraving the scale onto its surface, dividing it into degrees, minutes, and even fractions of a minute of arc. To use it, an observer sits on a chair, peering through a small hole in the opposite wall. A second observer moves a sliding sight along the brass arc until it aligns with the target star, passing the meridian. A third assistant stands by a giant clock, one of several highly accurate clocks you had specially built to record the exact time of the transit, while a fourth writes it all down in the logbook. The whole process is a kind of scientific ballet, a team of observers working in concert to capture a single, fleeting data point with unprecedented accuracy. You design and build dozens of other instruments, each for a specific purpose. There are huge armillary spheres, complex skeletal globes of interlocking metal rings representing the celestial equator, the ecliptic, and other cosmic circles. These are not just for measurement, but also for demonstration, helping you and your students visualize the complex motions of the heavens. You build giant steel sextants and azimuth quadrants for measuring the angular distance between any two celestial objects. To minimize errors from the flexing of wood or the warping of metal, you construct them with ingenious new alloys and bracing techniques. A particularly quirky but brilliant innovation is your method for sighting the stars. Remember, this is all happening just before the invention of the telescope. You cannot magnify the stars. All your observations are naked eye. Accuracy depends entirely on how precisely you can align your sights. So you develop a new system of pinholes or sighting devices. Instead of a simple front and back post system, you create sights with multiple slits of varying widths. By noting which slit a star is visible through, you can correct for the human error of not centering it perfectly. It's an ingenious workaround for the technological limitations of your time. Your instruments are not just functional. They are beautiful. You are a Renaissance nobleman, after all, and aesthetics matter. The great brass arcs are decorated with intricate engravings, not just of the measurement scales, but of your own portrait, your coat of arms, and Latin mottos celebrating the pursuit of knowledge. You are, in a very real sense, stamping your personal brand on the scientific process itself. This is Tycho's data, collected on Tycho's instruments in Tycho's castle. The accuracy you achieve is staggering. Before you, even the best astronomers struggled to get measurements accurate to within 10 or 15 arcminutes. An arcminute is 1/60th of a degree. The full moon is about 30 arcminutes wide. On a good night, with your best instruments, you and your team can get down to an accuracy of a single arcminute, and sometimes even better. This is a leap in precision of an order of magnitude. It's the difference between measuring a tabletop with a yardstick and measuring it with a laser. This incredible new level of accuracy will be your most important legacy. It will reveal subtle irregularities in the moon's orbit and tiny variations in the movements of the planets that no one had ever been able to detect before. You are creating the vast, high-fidelity dataset that will finally allow the old, inaccurate models of the universe to be broken and a new one, based on empirical truth, to be built in their place. You don't know it yet, but you are forging the very keys that your future assistant, Johannes Kepler, will one day use to unlock the laws of planetary motion. Even with the magnificent Uraniborg and its towering observation decks, you find yourself pushing against the limits of your environment. Venn is a windy island. The constant buffeting of the sea air, even on a seemingly calm night, can cause minute vibrations in your monumental instruments. For an astronomer obsessed with arc-second precision, even the slightest tremor is an intolerable source of error. You also need more space. Uraniborg is already filled with laboratories, libraries, living quarters, and workshops. You need more room for observation, and you need a place of absolute, unshakable stability. Your solution, as usual, is both radical and brilliant. If you can't find stability on the surface, you will go beneath it. Around 1584, you begin construction on a second, even more specialized observatory, just a short walk from the grand gates of Uraniborg. You call it St. the Castle of the Stars. The name is something of a joke, a bit of your typical sarcastic flair, because from the surface, it's not a castle at all. It's a series of small, domed roofs and elegant cupolas peeking out from a large, grassy mound. The bulk of the observatory is hidden, built underground. You excavate a series of subterranean chambers, or crypts, connected by tunnels. The design is a masterpiece of both engineering and symbolic architecture. The main structure is sunk deep into the bedrock of the island, providing an unparalleled level of stability. Completely shielded from the wind dot, each of your most important and sensitive instruments is given its own dedicated semi-subterranean vault. The instrument is mounted on a massive stone pier that goes right down into the earth, ensuring it remains perfectly still. A heavy, removable dome, or a sliding wooden hatch in the roof above, is the only opening to the outside world, allowing the instrument to be pointed at a specific patch of sky while the observer and the equipment remain protected. This design is revolutionary. It's the direct ancestor of the modern observatory dome, but with a uniquely Tychonic twist of burying the whole operation down in these quiet, cavernous rooms. The atmosphere is one of intense, focused work. The only light comes from lanterns and the patch of starry sky visible through the opening above. The only sounds are the quiet murmur of the observer calling out a measurement, the scratching of a quill pen in the logbook, and perhaps the distant wash of the sea. It is a sanctuary for science, a place where the messy, chaotic world above is shut out, leaving only the observer and the pure, silent cosmos. In the center of the complex, you build a larger, heated room for your assistants to warm themselves and to conduct calculations without having to trek back to Uraniborg on a freezing night. But St. Chernoborg, like Uraniborg, is more than just a place for astronomy. It's a reflection of your entire worldview. The layout of the underground chambers is, once again, highly symbolic, with a central chamber surrounded by others in a geometric, almost mystical pattern. And the secret depths of St. Chernoborg are not just physical, while the upper levels of Uraniborg are for show, for receiving noble guests and projecting an image of royal science. St. Chernoborg is your inner sanctum. It's where the most serious, and perhaps most secret, work is done. This includes not just your quest for astronomical data, but your other intertwined passions. Down here, shielded from prying eyes, you continue your deep dive into alchemy. Historians still argue whether you are genuinely trying to transmute lead into gold, a common goal for alchemists, or if your focus was primarily on iatrochemistry, the creation of new, powerful medicines. The evidence suggests the latter was your main focus. You produce a range of Tycho's elixirs, complex, herbal and chemical concoctions that you dispense to your family, your staff, and even sell to other nobles. One famous recipe was said to be an effective treatment for syphilis and other epidemic diseases, and it made you a fair amount of money. Alongside alchemy, you are a master astrologer. To our modern minds, this seems like a bizarre contradiction. How can a man dedicated to precise, empirical measurement also believe that the positions of the planets influence human destiny? But in your time, the line was blurry. Astronomy was the measuring of celestial positions. Astrology was the so what, the interpretation of what those positions meant. It was a respected and expected part of an astronomer's job. You cast detailed horoscopes for King Frederick II, his son Christian, and other European nobles. These weren't the vague newspaper horoscopes of today. They were complex mathematical charts based on your hyper-accurate planetary data. You use your knowledge of the new star of 1572 and various comets to make bold predictions about famines, plagues, and the fates of kings. A quirky tidbit is that you predicted your own death would occur abroad, a prophecy that would, in time, prove eerily accurate. Your scientific pursuit was not to debunk astrology, but to give it a more accurate empirical foundation. Better data meant better horoscopes. St. Chernoborg, with its hidden crypts and air of mystery, was the perfect place to bridge these two worlds, the mathematical and the mystical, deep within the earth of your personal kingdom. Life on your island kingdom settles into a strange and unique rhythm, a curious blend of feudal authority, rigorous scientific labor, and flamboyant personal eccentricity. You are the absolute ruler of Ven, and your word is law. The 40 ore. So peasant families who farm the island are your tenants, and their relationship with you is often strained. You demand labor for your many construction projects and a share of their harvests, as is your right as their feudal lord. But you are a demanding master, quick to anger and not known for your patience. Complaints about your harshness and high-handedness become common, whispered among the locals, and eventually reaching the ears of the court back in Copenhagen. You are, after all, a nobleman who once settled a math debate with a sword. You probably don't handle disputes over rent payments with gentle diplomacy. Your daily routine, however, is one of remarkable discipline. You typically rise and begin your day with discussions and calculations, reviewing the previous night's observations with your team of assistants. These aren't just local hires. They are some of the brightest young minds in Europe, students and scholars who have made the pilgrimage to Fen to learn from the master. You are a demanding but brilliant teacher, and a position as an assistant at Uraniborg is the most prestigious astronomical apprenticeship in the world. You work them hard, with long nights of observation followed by grueling days of mathematical reduction, but you also provide for them, housing and feeding them within the castle walls. The centerpiece of the social day is dinner. This is not a quiet meal. It's a grand affair in Uraniborg's main hall, where you entertain your staff, your family, and a constant stream of visiting dignitaries, scholars, and nobles from across the continent. You preside over the table like a king, your metallic nose gleaming in the candlelight, leading discussions on everything from planetary theory to alchemy to the politics of the Danish court. This is your stage, and you are the star performer, regaling your guests with stories, debating fiercely, and enjoying the fine food and wine that your station affords. And it's here, in the midst of this scientific court, that you're most famous. Eccentricities are on full display. One of the most legendary members of your household is your court jester, a dwarf named Yep. According to contemporary accounts, Yep sits at your feet during every meal. You believe him to be clairvoyant, and you listen intently to his often nonsensical chatter, convinced that he occasionally utters prophecies. You feed him scraps from your own plate, and if a visitor wants to ask you a question during dinner, they are sometimes instructed to address Yep first. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine belief in Yep's psychic abilities or a calculated piece of theater on your part, way to disconcert your guests and reinforce your own mystique as a man in tune with hidden forces. Another bizarre resident of Fen, at least for a time, is a pet elk, or moose, as North Americans would call it. You treat it more like a giant dog than a wild animal, and it follows you around the grounds of Uraniborg. The story of the elk comes to a sad and ridiculous end. You loan your pet to a fellow nobleman, the Baron of Landskrona, to provide some exotic entertainment for a party he is hosting. The elk, unaccustomed to the stone floors of a castle and probably confused by the festivities, reportedly drinks a large quantity of beer, loses its footing on a staircase, falls, and breaks its leg. In the 16th century, a broken leg is a death sentence for an animal that large, and your beloved pet has to be put down. It's a quirky, tragic footnote that perfectly captures the strange mix of the sublime and the absurd that characterizes your life. Amidst all this, the science never stops. After dinner, as darkness falls, the real work begins. You and your teams head out to the observation decks of Uraniborg, or descend into the subterranean vaults of St. Cherneborg. You work in shifts through the cold, dark nights, your voices calling out angles and times, the data slowly and meticulously accumulating in your great logbooks. You are obsessed with rooting out every possible source of error, from atmospheric refraction to the tiny flexures in your instruments. You even develop a theory of data analysis, understanding that by taking many measurements of the same phenomenon and averaging them, you can arrive at a more accurate result. This systematic, almost industrial approach to science is something entirely new. You are not just a lone genius having a eureka moment. You are the director of a complex research program, managing people, resources, and data on an unprecedented scale. Life on Ven is a whirlwind of scientific rigor, futile drama, and personal oddity, all driven by the force of your singular, brilliant, and deeply eccentric personality. The true, enduring legacy of your time on Ven is not the strange tales of prophetic jesters or drunken elk. It's not even the magnificent architecture of Uraniborg, which will one day fall into ruin. Your real revolution is quieter, more painstaking, and infinitely more important. It is a revolution in the very philosophy of how science is done. You are creating the modern discipline of observational astronomy. Before you, astronomers were primarily theorists or casual observers. They would make a few measurements of a planet's position, or note the appearance of a comet, and then retreat to their studies to try and fit these sparse observations into their preconceived models of the universe. The data was secondary to the theory. You completely invert this tradition. For you, the data is everything. It is the supreme, unassailable truth. A theory is only as good as the data that supports it. And if the data contradicts the theory, then the theory, no matter how elegant or ancient, must be wrong. This is the foundational principle of the modern scientific method, and you are its first great champion in the field of astronomy. You embark on a project of breathtaking ambition to create a complete, continuous, and hyper-accurate record of the positions of the stars and planets, night after night, year after year. This isn't a quest to prove a specific hypothesis. It's a mission to build a definitive dataset from which any future theory could be tested. The sheer scale of the operation is hard to comprehend. For over 20 years, you and your team, of as many as 30 assistants, work relentlessly. Every clear night, the observatories are buzzing with activity. You don't just observe special events like conjunctions or eclipses. You observe everything, all the time. You track the moon through its entire orbit, revealing subtle wobbles and variations that no one had ever noticed. You track the sun against the background of the zodiac, refining the length of the year to an incredible degree of accuracy. Most importantly, you track the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn with a relentless, obsessive precision. You fill enormous logbooks with thousands upon thousands of observations, each one noted with the date, the time, the instrument used, and even the weather conditions, so that potential errors could be analyzed later. This systematic approach allows you to make discoveries that were impossible before. By tracking the comet of 1577 with your precision instruments, you perform meticulous parallax measurements. You have observers in other parts of Europe take measurements at the same time, and by comparing your readings, you prove conclusively that the comet is not an atmospheric phenomenon, as Aristotle had taught, but is in fact an object moving through the realm of the planets, far beyond the moon. You even show that its path cuts directly through the supposed crystalline spheres on which the planets were believed to be carried. This is another devastating blow to the old cosmology. First, your supernova shattered the idea of an unchanging heaven, and now your comet has literally smashed through its physical structure. The old, nested, solid spheres of the cosmos could not exist. But what do you put in their place? This is where you, the great observer, become a theorist. You are intellectually trapped between two worlds. You know the old Ptolemaic system, with the Earth at the center, and everything orbiting it in complex circles, is wrong. Your data proves it. But you cannot bring yourself to accept the new Copernican system, which places the sun at the center. For you, the idea of a massive, heavy, stationary Earth hurtling through space is a physical absurdity. It also contradicts certain passages of Scripture, a problem for you as a devout Lutheran. So you propose a compromise, a hybrid model that becomes known as the Tychonic system. In your model, the Earth remains the stationary center of the universe. The sun and the moon orbit the Earth, but and this is the clever part, all the other planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, orbit the sun as it in turn orbits the Earth. It's a complex, but mathematically sound system. It has the advantage of keeping a stationary Earth, which appeals to common sense and religious orthodoxy, while also explaining the observed planetary motions just as well as Copernicus's model. For a time, your system is a major competitor to the Copernican view. A quirky fact is that from a purely mathematical perspective, ignoring the physics of forces, the Tychonic and Copernican systems are identical. It's just a change in the frame of reference. You can translate one into the other with a simple geometric transformation. Your Tychonic system is a brilliant attempt to reconcile your data with your worldview. It is a testament to your genius, but it is also a dead end. Its greatest flaw is its physical awkwardness. Why would the universe be organized in such a convoluted way? But you don't have the physics of gravity to guide you. What you have is your data. You publish a catalog of 777 fixed stars, with positions far more accurate than any before, and you are working on a catalog of 1,000. You publish your detailed observations of the planets. You are building the bridge to the future of astronomy, and you are paving it with numbers. You may not be the one to cross that bridge and discover the true shape of the solar system, but you are the one who makes the journey possible. Without your 20 years of tireless, obsessive observation, the revolution you started might have stalled for another century. Your island kingdom, for 2 decades a beacon of scientific progress, is built on a foundation of royal favor. And that foundation is beginning to crack. In 1588, your great patron and protector, King Frederick II, dies. His death marks the beginning of the end for Uraniborg. The new king is his son, Christian IV. He is only 11 years old when he ascends the throne, and for several years, Denmark is ruled by a council of regents. During this time, your funding continues, and your status is secure. But as the young king comes of age, the political winds begin to shift. Christian IV is a very different man from his father. He is a builder and a warrior, obsessed with military power and expanding Denmark's influence. He embarks on a massive building spree in Copenhagen and wages costly wars. While his father saw Uraniborg as a symbol of Danish prestige, Christian sees it as an enormous, and perhaps frivolous, expense. The annual grant that funds your entire operation, that 1% of the state budget, starts to look like a very tempting pot of money to be redirected toward ships and cannons. Your personality doesn't help your case. You have never been a man known for his humility or diplomacy. You are the Lord of Fen, and you act like it. You are frequently embroiled in disputes with your tenants, who continue to lodge complaints at court about your harsh rule. You neglect your duties to maintain the royal chapel on the island. You get into a nasty legal battle with a man named Gellius, who had married one of your tenant's daughters without your permission. You saw it as an affront your authority as feudal lord. The court saw it as petty tyranny. Each of these incidents chips away at your standing with the new king and his council. Furthermore, the very nature of your work is becoming a political liability. Your astrological predictions, once a valued service for Frederick II, are now a source of irritation for his son. You had cast a horoscope for the young Prince Christian years before, and some of the predictions were, to put it mildly, unflattering. Bringing up a king's potential character flaws, even if they are written in the stars, is not a good way to stay in his good graces. Historians still argue whether the primary cause of your downfall was financial, political, or personal. Most likely, it was a toxic combination of all three. You were an aging, arrogant, and incredibly expensive scholar from a previous generation, clinging to privileges that the new, pragmatic king was no longer willing to support. The cuts begin slowly, like a creeping frost. First, a portion of your grant is withdrawn. Then, your control over certain estates in Norway, which provided a significant part of your income, is revoked. The message from Copenhagen is clear. The age of unlimited patronage is over. You, in your typical fashion, do not respond with contrition or compromise. You respond with outrage. You write angry, demanding letters to the king, reminding him of the promises his father made and the international glory you have brought to Denmark. You see it as a matter of contractual obligation. The king sees it as the whining of a privileged subject who has forgotten his place. The final straw comes in 1597. The council, with the king's approval, terminates your main pension entirely. Your life's work is effectively defunded. Uraniborg, the most advanced scientific institution in the world, is crippled overnight. You are 50 years old, and the magnificent world you have built over 2 decades is collapsing around you. Faced with this impossible situation, you make a drastic decision. You will not stay in a Denmark that no longer values you. You will go into self-imposed exile, hoping that your absence will make the king realize what he is losing. You pack up your most essential belongings, your priceless observation logs, your smaller, portable instruments, and your printing press. You leave the great mural quadrant on the wall and the other monumental instruments to the mercy of the elements. In the spring of 1597, you and your family board a ship and sail away from Venn for the last time. As you watch the elegant spires of Uraniborg and the strange domes of St. Cherniborg shrink over the horizon, you must feel a profound sense of loss and betrayal. The island is no longer your kingdom. It's just a patch of land, a monument to a golden age that has passed. You travel first to Rostock, then to Wandsbek near Hamburg, living as a guest of a scholarly friend. You publish a grand illustrated book of your instruments, a kind of scientific catalog, and resume, sending copies to all the great princes and patrons of Europe. You are Tycho Brahe, the world's greatest astronomer, and you are officially looking for a new job. Your Danish chapter is over. The final act of your extraordinary life is about to begin, in a new city, under the patronage of a new and even more eccentric ruler. Your self-imposed exile is a period of uncertainty and frustration. You are a man accustomed to being the center of the scientific universe, the master of a purpose-built island. Now you are a wandering scholar, living off the hospitality of friends and trying to find a new patron powerful and wealthy enough to support your colossal ambitions. You are essentially hawking your genius around the courts of Europe. You send out feelers, along with beautifully printed copies of your latest book, Astronomia Instrata Mechanica, Instruments for the Restored Astronomy, which serves as a glorious portfolio of your work on heaven. The response is heartening. Your reputation precedes you. You receive several tempting offers, but you are looking for more than just a pension. You need a place where you can not only continue your work, but rebuild your scientific empire. Your sights turn toward Prague, the glittering capital of the Holy Roman Empire. The ruler there is Emperor Rudolf II, a man whose reputation for intellectual curiosity and profound eccentricity is second only to his political power. Rudolf is a Habsburg, one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe, but he is not a typical monarch. He is reclusive, melancholic, and far more interested in art, alchemy, and the occult than in the dreary business of governing. His court in Prague is a magnet for artists, philosophers, alchemists, and mystics from all over the world. It is, perhaps, the only place in Europe that could possibly accommodate a personality as grand and demanding as yours. In 1598, your letters and books find their mark. You receive a formal invitation from Emperor Rudolf II. He offers you the position of imperial mathematician, a prestigious title that comes with a handsome salary, a choice of castles near Prague to build a new observatory, and the promise of funding for new instruments. It is everything you have been hoping for. The Holy Roman Emperor himself wants you. It is a triumphant vindication after the humiliation of your departure from Denmark. So, in 1599, you and your entire household, your wife Christine, your children, your assistants, and all your portable equipment make the long, arduous journey. South to Prague, the city is a revelation. It's a bustling cosmopolitan metropolis, a vibrant melting pot of cultures and ideas, dominated by the magnificent Prague Castle complex looming over the Vltava River. It's a world away from the windswept isolation of Ven. You are welcomed with all the honor befitting a scholar of your stature. The emperor grants you a generous pension of 3,000 florins, a truly enormous sum. He makes you a lord of his court and gives you Benátky Castle, about 20 miles outside the city, as a place to set up your new Uraniborg. You arrive at Benátky, full of renewed purpose. The castle is large and impressive, and you immediately set about converting it into a laboratory and observatory. You send for your remaining large instruments from Ven, hoping to have them shipped to your new home. Your assistants begin the familiar work of setting up workshops and preparing for the resumption of the great observational project. The emperor is true to his word, providing funds and support. It seems as though you have found your new paradise, a place where your work will be celebrated and your genius given free rein once more. Life in Prague, however, is different. You are no longer the absolute ruler of your own small island. You are a player, albeit a very important one, in a much larger and more complex political game. The emperor, your new patron, is a deeply strange man. He is prone to fits of deep depression, often hiding himself away for weeks at a time, refusing to see even his most senior ministers. Your access to him is not guaranteed. While he is fascinated by your work, his attention is divided among 100 other passions, from his vast collection of exotic animals to his stables of alchemists, promising to find the philosopher's stone. A mainstream historical fact from this period is the sheer scale of Rudolph's collections. His cabinet of curiosities, or Kunstkammer, was one of the most extensive in Europe, mixing art, natural specimens, and scientific instruments in a quest to understand the microcosm. You find the work of rebuilding your observatory to be slow and frustrating. Benátky Castle is not Ven. It is not designed from the ground up for astronomy. You spend a great deal of time and money on renovations, but it never quite matches the perfection you had achieved on your island. Still, you are back in business. You are Tycho Brahe, imperial mathematician to the Holy Roman Emperor. You have a new base of operations and the patronage of the most powerful ruler in Christendom. You are once again at the pinnacle of the scientific world. But you are also aging. The years of relentless work and political struggle have taken their toll. You know you will not have another 20 years to accumulate data. You need help. You need someone with the mathematical firepower to make sense of the mountain of observations you have accumulated. You need a brilliant calculator to prove the truth of your Tychonic system once and for all. And as the new century dawns, a letter arrives from a young, brilliant, and desperately unemployed Protestant mathematician in Austria. His name is Johannes Kepler. The arrival of Johannes Kepler in your life is the final, crucial piece of the cosmic puzzle you have spent a lifetime assembling. You are the undisputed king of observation, the master of data. Kepler is a raw, untamed genius of mathematics and theory. He is everything you are not, a poor, devoutly mystical Copernican with a turbulent personal life and a mind that sees divine harmonies in pure geometry. The two of you are destined to be a perfect, if profoundly dysfunctional, Team Gott Kepler. A young German mathematician has recently been forced to leave his teaching post in Graz, Austria, due to religious persecution against Protestants. He is brilliant, but he is also broke and desperate. He has already published a book, Mysterium Cosmographicum, a work of dazzling mathematical creativity, and to your practical mind, bizarre speculation. In it, Kepler theorized that the orbits of the 6 known planets were structured around the 5 perfect Platonic solids, nested one inside the other. It's a beautiful, elegant idea that is almost completely wrong. But you see past the mystical strangeness and recognize the formidable mathematical talent that produced it. You have been in correspondence with him, and you know he could be the key to unlocking your data. You need a world-class mathematician to do the soul-crushing calculations required to fit your observations to your Tychonic model of the universe. Kepler needs a job done, so, in the first month of the new century, on February 4th, 1600, Johannes Kepler arrives at Benátky Castle. The meeting is a clash of titans, a collision of 2 enormous egos. You are 53, the grand old man of astronomy, lordly, imperious, and accustomed to being obeyed. Kepler is 28, passionate, stubborn, and convinced of his own Copernican truth. You greet him not as a collaborator, but as a new and highly skilled assistant. You are generous, providing him with lodging and a seat at your table. But you are also intensely secretive. You do not simply hand over your precious life's work, the 20 years of observational data from Haven. That is your treasure, your legacy. You hoard it like a dragon. You are terrified that if you give Kepler full access, he won't use it to prove your Tychonic system, but will instead use it to vindicate Copernicus. And you are probably right. So, you dole out the data in small, carefully selected parcels. You assign him a specific, notoriously difficult problem. The orbit of Mars. Mars is the perfect challenge. Its orbit is the most eccentric of the known planets, besides Mercury, and it stubbornly refuses to fit neatly into any existing model, including your own. The best minds have tried and failed to tame Mars. You believe that if Kepler, with his mathematical prowess, can solve the riddle of Mars using your data and make it fit the Tychonic system, it will be the ultimate proof of your model's superiority. It is a test, a trial by calculation. The working relationship is fraught with tension. You and Kepler argue constantly. Kepler complains in his letters about your domineering style and your refusal to share data. You, in turn, are infuriated by Kepler's arrogance and his unwavering belief in the Copernican system. There is a famous blow-up where Kepler, after a heated argument, storms out of the castle and heads back to Prague. He is eventually coaxed back with apologies and promises, but the fundamental conflict remains. Historians still argue whether you consciously withheld the Mars data out of jealousy, or if it was a genuinely prudent, methodical way of managing a brilliant but potentially heretical assistant. Despite the friction, a grudging respect develops. Kepler is astounded by the precision of your observations. He quickly realizes that your data is so good, so accurate, that it cannot be fudged. The numbers are the numbers. He writes that your observations are accurate to within 1 or 2 arcminutes. His own theoretical model for Mars, based on old data, disagrees with one of your observations by 8 arcminutes. A quirky fringe tidbit is that Kepler's almost religious faith in the divine perfection of the universe meant he couldn't accept such a discrepancy. He famously wrote, "If I had believed that we could ignore these 8 minutes, I would have patched up my hypothesis." But since it was not permissible to ignore, those 8 minutes pointed the road to a complete reformation in astronomy. This is the key. Before you, an 8 arcminute error would have been chalked up to observational sloppiness. But Kepler knows your data is better than that. That small error, which only your instruments could reveal, is a crack in the foundation of 2,000 years of astronomical thought. It proves that the orbit of Mars cannot be a perfect circle, or even the complex system of circles, epicycles, used in the Ptolemaic and Copernican systems. The universe is not as simple as everyone had believed. You and Kepler worked together in this state of tense symbiosis for just over a year. You move your base of operations from the frustrating castle at Benátky into Prague itself, closer to the emperor. The collaboration continues, with Kepler chipping away at the problem of Mars, and you overseeing the grand project, perhaps sensing that your time is running short. You are two opposite poles of a single magnet, repelling and attracting each other, bound together by the intractable problem of the red planet. You have brought the world's greatest observer together with the world's greatest theoretical mathematician. The stage is set for a revolution, but you will not live to see its final act. The autumn of 1601 finds you living in a fine house in Prague, firmly established as the imperial mathematician. Your collaboration with Kepler, though still stormy, has settled into a productive, if wary, routine. Kepler is wrestling with the formidable mathematics of Mars, and you are analyzing other parts of your vast dataset, planning the publication of a new, definitive star catalog to be called the Rudolphine Tables, in honor of your patron. You are at the height of your renewed fame and influence, a celebrated figure in the emperor's glittering mystical court. And then, quite suddenly, your story comes to a strange and abrupt end out in October. You are invited to a grand banquet at the palace of a fellow nobleman, the Baron of Rosenberg. You are, as always, a guest of honor. The feast is a lavish affair, with course after course of rich food and, more importantly, an endless supply of wine and beer. You are a man who enjoys the good life, and you partake enthusiastically. But here, the rigid etiquette of the 16th century noble court plays a fateful role. It was considered a grave insult, an unforgivable breach of manners, to leave the dinner table before the host, or the highest-ranking guest had risen. As the long evening wears on, you find yourself in increasing discomfort. You have drunk a great deal, and your bladder is full to bursting. But the Baron of Rosenberg, your host, remains seated, deep in conversation. You are trapped by politeness. You hold on, enduring what must have been excruciating pressure for hours. By the time the banquet finally ends, and you are able to relieve yourself, it is too late. You can only pass a small amount of water, and then nothing, despite being in intense pain. The damage has been done. You are taken home, gravely ill. 4. The next 11 days, you lie in your bed in a state of escalating agony and delirium. You are unable to urinate, and a fever sets in. Your abdomen is swollen and tender. Your brilliant mind, which had roamed the cosmos, is now trapped in a body consumed by a simple, brutal biological failure. As you drift in and out of consciousness, you are said to have repeatedly uttered the same phrase, a lament for a life's work still unfinished, ne frustra vixis videre. Let me not seem to have lived in vain. Your devoted assistant, Johannes Kepler, is at your bedside throughout the ordeal, recording the sad progression of your illness. On October 24th, 1601, after 11 days of suffering, you die. You are 54 years old. The traditional story, recorded by Kepler himself, is that you died from a burst bladder or a kidney infection, uremia, brought on by the polite refusal to leave the banquet. For centuries, this was the accepted account. Bizarre, almost comically tragic end for such a monumental figure. It became part of your legend. The man with the golden nose who died because he was too polite to go to the bathroom. But in the centuries since, a more sensational and controversial theory has emerged, leading to a heated scholarly debate. The story begins in 1901, when your tomb in the Tan Church in Prague was opened for the 300th anniversary of your death. Scientists took samples of your hair for analysis. Decades later, in the 1990s, these samples were subjected to modern forensic analysis using techniques like particle-induced X-ray emission. The results were shocking. Your hair contained dangerously high levels of mercury. This led to a new, dramatic hypothesis. You were murdered, poisoned with mercury. The theory gained traction. Who would want to kill you? The list of suspects was long. Was it a rival astronomer? Was it an agent of the Danish king, Christian IV, seeking to silence a troublesome and embarrassing exile? Or, in the most dramatic telling, was it your own assistant, Johannes Kepler? The motive. Kepler was desperate to get his hands on your complete dataset, which you guarded so jealously. Did he administer slow doses of mercury to incapacitate and kill you, securing not only the data, but also your prestigious and lucrative position as imperial mathematician? This murder mystery narrative persisted for years, a dark shadow on the legacy of both you and Kepler. The debate raged. Was it an assassination, or was the mercury simply evidence of your own alchemical experiments? You spent years of your life in a laboratory, working with mercury to create medicines and conduct experiments. It's highly plausible that you were a victim of accidental self-poisoning over a long period to settle the question. Your tomb was opened once again in 2010 by a team of Danish and Czech scientists. This time, they had even more advanced technology. They took bone samples, hair samples, and even scrapings from the famous prosthetic nose, which turned out to be made of brass, not a precious metal. They conducted rigorous toxicological analysis. The final report, published in 2012, was conclusive. While there were trace amounts of mercury, they were not nearly enough to be fatal. The levels were consistent with either environmental exposure or the use of mercury-based medicines, which you were known to create and take. The sensational murder theory was, in all likelihood, false. The science of the 21st century had exonerated Kepler and pointed back to the original story. You most likely died of a burst bladder and subsequent kidney failure, a condition known today as acute urinary retention leading to uremia. It was a mundane, agonizing, and entirely preventable death, made tragic by the strange customs of yore. Time. Your end was not a dramatic poisoning plot, but a painful lesson in the dangers of holding it in. In the chaotic days following your death, the fate of your life's work hangs precariously in the balance. Your treasure, the meticulous logbooks containing more than 20 years of priceless astronomical data, is now part of your estate. Your family, led by your son-in-law Franz Tengnagel, sees the data not as a key to the cosmos, but as a valuable financial asset. Tengnagel, a nobleman of some ambition but little scientific talent, had been appointed by you to help complete your work, a decision you likely made to ensure your family's financial security. He immediately lays claim to the entire observational legacy, intending to guard it closely and perhaps sell it to the highest bidder. This is Johannes Kepler's moment of greatest crisis and greatest opportunity. He knows that if your data is locked away, sold off piecemeal, or worse, entrusted to the mathematically inept Tengnagel, your final wish, "Let me not seem to have lived in vain," will be betrayed. The revolution you started will stall. So Kepler, the poor, struggling mathematician, makes a bold and legally questionable move. It's a moment that historians still view with a mixture of admiration and censure. He essentially seizes the data. Some accounts say he borrowed the logbooks. Others use the harsher term, stole. Kepler himself would later confess, "I confess that when Tycho died, I quickly took advantage of the absence, or lack of circumspection of the heirs, by taking the observations under my care, or perhaps usurping them." He justifies this act of scientific piracy by arguing that he is the only person on Earth capable of understanding the data and using it to fulfill your ultimate goal of reforming astronomy. He swiftly negotiates with the emperor, who is anxious to see the promised Rudolphine tables completed. Within 2 days of your death, Emperor Rudolph II appoints Kepler as your successor, the new imperial mathematician. This gives him the legal authority he needs to retain control of the observations, fending off the claims of your heirs. The precious cargo is safe. The legacy is now in Kepler's hands. With full, unfettered access to the complete dataset for the first time, Kepler dives back into the problem that has haunted him, the defiant orbit of Mars. For years, he toils, performing calculations so extensive and complex, they are almost unimaginable in a pre-computer age. He tries dozens of different circular orbits and egg-shaped ovals, but nothing fits. Your data is too precise. That stubborn 8 arcminute discrepancy you revealed to him will not go away. He is forced to abandon 2,000 years of philosophical and scientific dogma, the belief that all celestial motion must be based on the perfect shape of the circle. Then, in a flash of insight, he tries a different shape, one long known to ancient Greek geometers, but never seriously applied to the heavens, the ellipse. And suddenly, everything clicks into place. The numbers line up. The orbit of Mars is not a circle, but a slightly squashed circle, an ellipse, with the sun not at the center, but at one of the two focal points. This discovery becomes his first law of planetary motion. Your data, and your data alone, makes this breakthrough possible. Without your relentless 20-year-long campaign of observation, the subtle elliptical nature of the planetary orbits would have remained hidden, lost, in the noise of less accurate measurements. Kepler then uses your data to uncover his second law, that a planet sweeps out equal areas in equal times, meaning it moves faster when it is closer to the sun and slower when it is farther away. These two laws are published in 1609 in his book, Astronomia Nova, the New Astronomy, with the telling subtitle, Based upon the Causes of Things or Celestial Physics, brought out of the commentaries on the observations of the star Mars by the late Tycho Brahe. He gives you full credit. You are not just mentioned. You are the foundation upon which the entire work is built. Years later, after poring over more of your observations of all the planets, he formulates his third law, a beautiful mathematical relationship between a planet's orbital period and its distance from the sun. The three of Kepler's laws of planetary motion, derived directly from your life's work, finally describe the true architecture of the solar system. They replace the clunky, inaccurate circles of Ptolemy and Copernicus with a system of elegant, predictable ellipses. They form the bedrock of celestial mechanics and will, decades later, provide the crucial evidence Isaac Newton needs to formulate his universal law of gravitation. Kepler finally completes the project you started together, publishing the Rudolphine Tables in 1627. These new astronomical tables, based on your observations and his laws, are orders of magnitude more accurate than any that came before. They are so good, they become the standard for astronomers and navigators for over a century. Your final wish is granted. You did not live in vain. Through the hands of your brilliant, difficult, and loyal successor, your numbers have been transformed into physical laws. You, the man who rejected Copernicus, the man who clung to a stationary Earth, have, through your unwavering dedication to empirical truth, provided the very evidence that would cement the sun-centered solar system and launch the new age of modern astronomy. It is your ultimate and most beautiful paradox. Your story doesn't end in the grave. It echoes through the centuries, a testament to a personality as brilliant and contradictory as the era you inhabited. You stand as a colossal figure, a bridge between two worlds, with one foot planted firmly in the ancient world of alchemy, astrology, and naked eye observation, and the other stepping boldly into the new world of empirical data, systematic research, and mathematical physics. You are, in many ways, the last of the great classical astronomers, and the very first of the moderns. Your most tangible legacy, the island kingdom of Ven, did not survive you. After your departure, Uraniborg and St. Chernoborg fell into neglect. Without your guiding presence and the river of royal gold, the magnificent structures were left to the wind and the rain. The remaining instruments were pilfered or destroyed. The local peasants, who had long resented you as a harsh master, saw little reason to preserve the monuments of their former lord. Within a few decades, your castle of the heavens was systematically dismantled, its bricks and stones repurposed for other buildings. Today, if you were to visit the island of Fen, you would find almost nothing of your grand palace. The foundations of your Uraniborg have been excavated and are now part of a museum, and the underground vaults of St. Chernigborg have been reconstructed, allowing visitors to step into the quiet darkness where you once mapped the stars. It's a ghost of a kingdom, a faint echo of the scientific capital of the world, but your true legacy was never made of brick and mortar. It was written in numbers, in the pages of the logbooks that Kepler fought so hard to possess. Your insistence on continuous, high-precision observation established a new standard for all of science. The idea that a scientific theory must be rigorously and relentlessly tested against empirical data is a cornerstone of modern thought, and you were its first great astronomical champion. Every scientist today who spends long hours in a lab, meticulously recording results, checking for errors, and building a dataset before drawing a conclusion, is walking in your footsteps. You also represent the archetype of the eccentric genius. The golden nose, the prophetic dwarf, the beer-drinking elk, these stories have cemented your place in popular culture as one of history's great oddballs. They make you human and memorable, a figure far more colorful than the dry, dispassionate scientist of stereotype. This reputation is a double-edged sword. It sometimes threatens to overshadow your immense scientific contributions, turning you into a caricature. But it also serves as a reminder that great leaps of intellect are often made by individuals who are unwilling to conform to the world around them, who are bold enough, and perhaps arrogant enough, to believe they can build their own. Your Tychonic model of the universe, that complex, Earth-centered hybrid, may have been a scientific dead end, but it was a brilliant and logical one given the evidence available to you. You lacked the understanding of physics and gravity that would later make the Copernican system irresistible. Your refusal to accept a moving Earth wasn't born of ignorance, but of a commitment to the physical evidence you could see and feel. It's a powerful lesson in how even the greatest minds can be constrained by the paradigms of their time. Historians still argue whether your stubborn adherence to your own model ultimately helped or hindered the Copernican revolution. But none deny that the data you provided was the fuel that powered it. Your immortal spark, then, is this profound paradox. You were a man of the past who armed the future. You built your life's work to prove your own vision of the cosmos, but the integrity of your work was so absolute that it ended up proving you wrong. You sought to perfect the old world and ended up creating the raw materials for the new. As you drift now into the quiet of sleep, imagine that new star you saw in Cassiopeia. For a brief, brilliant moment, it outshone all others, changing our understanding of the heavens forever. It was a stella nova, a new star in an eternal sky. And so were you. A brilliant, fiery, and astonishing new light, blazing a trail for all who would dare to look up and question the stars. And so, the story of Tycho Brahe comes to a gentle close. The images of his island kingdom, the glint of his metallic nose, in the candlelight, and the quiet hum of his underground observatories begin to soften and fade. The echoes of his furious arguments and his passionate pursuit of knowledge grow distant, replaced now by the stillness of the night that surrounds you. He was a man of fire and intellect, a nobleman who reached for the stars from his own private world, and in doing so, gave the future the tools it needed to understand its place in the universe. His life was a testament to the idea that progress is not always a straight line, but a complex dance between old ideas and new discoveries, between stubborn pride and the undeniable truth of a well-measured number. His journey from a Danish castle to a private island, and finally to the imperial court of Prague, was a relentless quest for a perfect understanding of the perfect. Clockwork heavens. Now, let the details of his world recede. Let the grandeur of Uraniborg dissolve into the soft darkness, and allow the weight of history to feel light, like a distant, twinkling star. There are no more calculations to be made, no more duels to be fought. There is only the quiet rhythm of your own breathing, a gentle tide pulling you deeper into rest. The night is a vast, peaceful ocean, and you can let yourself drift upon its calm surface, feeling safe and secure. The story is told, the journey is complete. It is time now for nothing but sleep. Sweet dreams.